We are live May 7th, 2015, the Ochelli Effect. That makes me your host, Chuck Ochelli, because nobody's ever substituted for me before, except me when the baby was being born. Outside of that, I always show up no matter what shape I'm in. What an interesting day, what an interesting week, what an interesting month, what an interesting year. Isn't it a rather revolutionary sort of time period in which we live, for the spirit, for the human mind, for the body, for the soul, for every single thing you can think of. Thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate you no matter how you decided to find this particular broadcast. If you caught it further on down the line on YouTube or whatever, please do visit ucy.tv/TOE, okay? Because that is where you can find the archives, the RSS feed, all of that kind of good stuff. And if you decided to tune in on the live stream with your applicable application and your fondle slab of choice, you are also greatly appreciated. So, thank you. Thank you very much. Almost feel the Elvis thing coming on there, but not really an Elvis guy. I sometimes think of that movie Pulp Fiction where they have that conversation. Some people are Elvis people and some people are Beatles people, and that's really the only two kinds of people there are in the world. And I'm a Black Sabbath fan. Anyway, tonight, as soon as I can get her on here, because I had her for a moment there and then all of a sudden she was gone, Suzanne Posel will join me from OccupyCorporatism.com, the USIndependent.com. Always writing fascinating stuff. Oh, that's right. I did forget about, thanking everybody who listens and all that good stuff. I do appreciate all of you, that's for sure. And do appreciate the feedback, whether positive or negative, including the guy on Google Plus that's screaming that I don't know how to shut up during Adam Gorightly's interview. Gee, how interestingly counterintuitive that is. You know, a talk show host that needs to learn to shut up. And for 2 hours, I've got to just simply let a guest sit there and speak. That doesn't make very much sense, since human beings do like to breathe. There I go, tripping over my tongue. Human beings do like to breathe every now and then. And it's kind of helpful to give them a break to collect their thoughts and sort of reconcile what it is they're doing versus what it was they wanted to do. You know, so, gee, I guess I talk way too much during Adam Go Rightly. But thanks for the comments, and your critique is taken into mind. Not my mind, but somebody's. Anyway. Oh, and to, that's my listeners in Russia. Also, spasibo. And Dobrevicha. I think it's evening. I'm not sure what time it is in Russia, actually, but I know you guys do listen on the live stream every now and then. Don't know how you get it exactly, because I don't seem to find you guys on the analytics, but, during your conversations back and forth, I do see that you're listening to some of my stuff, so thanks. Thanks very much. Anyway, let's see. It looks like we're still calling Suzanne Posel. I could sit here and just ramble if I want to. And if I do that, I'm probably going to have what few of you I do have tuning in to me tune out, because I'm in one of these very odd moods today. But, well, that's stranger than strange. Tell you what, also, I'm going to throw open the phone lines today for anybody who feels like calling in during the show. 718-717-8296. I do have the phones. Yes, I do. So if you want to call in that way, or if you're on the Charles.Ochelli Skype list, please, please, please join in to the conversation at appropriate times, etc., etc. When I have somebody giving a singular dissertation, I don't always take calls right away. But hey, check this out. I can't get Suzanne on the line. So, believe it or not, you could be talking to me first if you feel like calling in. So I'll wait a couple minutes for the stream to catch up to what I just said, and we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, what is going on with the Skype? I believe I'm on the air. Yeah, I am. Okay, good. Where are we going to go? I mean, am I going to wind up reading the article that cracked me up this week from her by myself? I might, because it had to do with something that I heard just on the tail end of what Jules was talking about on the replay before. I mean, the whole Star Trek scenario, and of course, we've talked about this before, haven't we? How, there's a lot of predictive programming out there and stuff. And of course, when I've had Larry Woods on the show, we have, you want the number posted in chat? Okay, no problem. I'll do that right now, guys. Of course, I have trouble typing and doing my thing at the same time, but what the hell? Okay. God, I hate this keyboard. Today my letter N got stuck for a while, too. That was good, and I have no idea how that happened. Cracks me up, man. Really does. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, now I've got my bearings here. Anyway. Alright, there we go. Oh, look, Vince easily beat me to it anyway, but there I am. Hoorah. Okay. Let's see. Still dialing Suzanne. This is hysterical. Alright, not a problem. Not a problem at all. Tell you what we'll do. We'll go over to a couple other things that are going on. Then while I'm waiting to see if I can raise Suzanne once more. Oh no, we don't want to do that because we're saving that for the next JFK Myth show. Let's see what else we got here in the old folder. Tell you what, some weird sort of debates started online this week too, off of the funny thing, off of the Jaded show, which of course Cracker called into, and we had a rather spirited discussion about violence versus nonviolence and exactly how far people have gone and exactly where people's loyalties as far as the Second Amendment go, where people's loyalties go regarding the military and the police, and who's going to turn against who at what particular time, and exactly what type of a revolutionary clash is going to be required or a requisite to actually regaining our freedoms in this country and all that kind of stuff. And of course, I don't have the most popular viewpoint in the world, which is that, first of all, nonviolence is going to be ineffective in this particular case, but also that armed conflict is a poor strategy for those of us who are the walking among the rest of the population, the rest of us who are not part of the big game, who are not necessarily in these positions of being the attack dogs for the establishment. This is going to not be a good thing. I mean, people talk about how, the warfare that went on in Vietnam, right, where you have this insurgency, where you have guerrilla tactics being employed and things like that. Do you honestly think the American public has the steel for this kind of stuff? Do you think that there's enough of you to cause an effective, pushback against a greater machine, or do you think you'll be able to even slow it down by allowing yourselves to be ground up by it? I disagree. If you take a look at Vietnam, although we could not achieve victory there on the ground, etc., because of the insurgency, also take note of the wonderful body count. This is the thing, when you've got a 22-to-1 body count, if you find that acceptable and you think that our resources will not be completely expelled, completely exhausted in a very short period of time, I beg to differ. Okay, I don't think that the American people have the strength to do what the Vietnamese people did. I don't believe that they have the intelligence left. I don't think that the Vietnamese were quite as overwhelmed with the biochemical warfare which has gone on, dumbing down people, making them weak, fat, lazy, and stupid, which is what I see constantly. That's what that comes down to. So I think this particular little debate, though, with Cracker, and I gave respect to Cracker and let him speak his mind, absolutely. I see him in the chat room right now. And love you, man, even if I disagree with you. And give anybody my respect who actually went and risked their life to do something for this country at any point in time, regardless of the fact that you were lied to, regardless of the fact that, you were misused and your patriotism misrepresented via those people who were in control of the reins of power. You know what? That's not your fault. And I'll tell you something else. I did give that respect to him and everything else, but that discussion spurred a little bit of debate elsewhere. And it was kind of funny. A couple of articles got written at zeninthecar.com. And then, of course, people started attacking Daniel Lewis Crumpton for his particular viewpoint on the thing. And that's why Daniel is going to be on Saturday on my show. And we're going to go over all of that. Okay, other stuff I've got coming up, by the way, as I still try to sort myself out and go to my backup measures. On Tuesday night, which is normally Liberty Beacon night, I'm also going to be talking to Canada's Libertarian Party. I'm going to be talking to individuals one individual, I should say, his name is Kenny, I can't remember his last name right off the top of my head, but I had a conversation with him, and he's running for a seat in Parliament in Canada under a libertarian platform, and that ought to be fascinating. I want to hear what they have to say. They're actually utilizing the example of Denmark to try and fix what's going on north of the border here. I want to keep an eye on that, and I seriously pray that they will not be as co-opted as our particular little patriot movement was co-opted, and our alleged libertarian movement here was also co-opted and poisoned by the greater interests who turned around and pretty much consumed it and assumed the position, as it were. What is going on here? Man, oh man. Anyway, still trying to raise Suzanne Posel. By the way, I'm about to give up because she might have some sort of computer issue or internet issue. And that being the case, that means I'll wind up just running my mouth. So again, unless you want to listen to me ramble on for 2 hours, which I will do, 718-717-8296. And I've got way too much stuff open for whoever the hell is trying to private message me on the chat room. I'm trying to keep my eye on the chat room. Also open up stuff and all that. So whoever's private messaging me, it's not urgent enough for me to get it. If you got my Skype contact, text a message through there because I'm watching that very closely. Oh, wait a minute. It looks like I might actually have Suzanne. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Ah, okay.
I was sitting there listening to you on the air. I did not realize I had to hit the call button. I thought you guys would... Sorry.
You know what's funny? I had you on during the call, and I told you something about the intro, and then, all right, whatever. It happens, man.
It was my stupidity just sitting here, tra-la-la-la-la.
You thought you were waiting all that time.
I did. I was patiently waiting. See how nice I am? I just patiently wait.
I would not have gone through all of that if I was bringing you on. I just said I was about ready to give up.
I know, I heard that, and I was like, wait a minute, why don't I just call him then?
Oh wow! All right, there
Sorry.
we go. Anyway, just so it's not completely incongruous, yes, I'm doing that on Tuesday night, right? And I've got some other stuff scheduled for next week that's going to be kind of weird. So we're going to go into some strange directions pretty soon. Nothing will be any stranger than my Christmas special, but I don't know. That wasn't very popular. Kind of anti Catholic, I guess. It ended up sounding like, and well, all right. Anyway.
Well, you know how I feel about that. If you want to go there, I don't mind. But
Oh no! Listen, I don't care. We can go anywhere. But I had an idea where I wanted to start off with you, and of course, this is Suzanne Posel from OccupyCorporatism.com, the USIndependent.com. Geez, if you're anywhere on social media, you definitely run into her stuff. She's all over the place. Also, the host of Hardline on American Freedom Radio. And geez, what credits am I forgetting? Well, of course, there's the CBD thing.
CrystalPureCBD.com.
Yep, I never know how to explain that properly, so I always turn it over to you. See, there's the trick. No fourth wall here. I don't do that. Just here you go. Yeah, so Crystal Pure CBD, I know that's got to do with actually getting something pure as opposed to that toxic paste that's in a lot of this other crap that's floating around.
It's in everything else. Everything else is paste based, and it is 85% toxic filler. When you go to crystalpurecbd.com, you can read about what is in there, and that is according to Tamar Wise, who is the former head scientist of Dixie Botanicals. She quit her job because she couldn't take it anymore. And we have the only absolutely pure form of the cannabidiol isolate. It is 99.9% pure. We just mix it with some organic hemp seed oil, and that's it. It's as pure as you can get.
Right, and that's that is actually literally at crystalpurecbd.com, right?
Yes, and no THC. It's zero THC, so it's legal in all 50 states. You don't have to worry about if you're taking it for medicinal purposes or preventative purposes. You do not have to worry about the effects of THC because it does not contain it in there.
And just to clarify my position, because one time we were talking about this on the air, and somebody from Canada, I don't know why this just popped in my mind, but somebody from Canada gave me crap in a private message on Facebook, like over and over, paragraph after paragraph after paragraph on one point. You know what it was? Is I can't believe that you're like against people actually utilizing THC. I'm not. Okay.
I'm not either.
There's a choice. It's just, you know what? If you want the effects of the stuff, but you don't want the THC level, I think that should be available in as clean a product as possible too. So yeah, I support this as well. But honestly, brother, I see nothing wrong with everybody pretty much smoking weed who can make that decision.
Well, the thing about it is there a lot of children, a lot of epileptic children or children with various other seizure disorders are taking the hemp paste. And they are getting exposed to THC. Now, I'm a parent, and my son is on the product that we sell because he has a seizure disorder. I don't want him exposed to THC, but I do want him to have the benefits of the cannabidiol because it has positive effects. Go look it up on the National Institutes of Health website at pubmed.org, and you will see over 1,300 studies showing you the positive effects of the cannabidiol isolate in a crystalline form. They do not test the hemp paste because they know it has toxins in it.
Right.
And we decided that because GW Pharma has a synthetic version, that the consumer should have a plant-based version as well. So we have that, and we provided it out there. And now there's lots of copycats. My husband told me there's lots of copycats out there. So it's flattery, and I appreciate that. But if you want the original, crystalpurecbd.com, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with THC, but if you let's say some of our customers are giving it to their parents who are in their 80s and 90s. They don't want to be high all day. And when
Yeah.
they're taking the hemp paste, they have to take up to 7 times as much of the hemp paste as you do one bottle of our crystal pure CBD. So they're taking massive amounts of THC. Some of our customers complain that during the hemp paste, their parents were non-functioning. They were so high. And so now taking our product, they don't even have to worry about the THC. Their mother, grandma, grandpa can function normally and still know that they're getting the cannabidiol isolate, which is the medicinal part of the hemp and marijuana plant anyway.
Yeah, right. But just to clarify though, honestly, I mean, if your son found relief from literally just smoking and he was old enough, I got no problem with that, and I don't care what the laws say. I think it's a ridiculous thing that's gone on. Sorry. That's where I'm at with it, and I don't, I see it as a much less dangerous thing to do, and it's all kinds of beneficial for many, many different things. From problems with your eyes to cardiovascular problems to people that could utilize it, to raise up their appetites. There are hundreds of uses for the plant. So I support the use of the plant in any way, shape, or form. Okay, I just want to make that nice and clear because this guy was going after me like, oh, so now what you're about is, no, 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 no,
Well, the
no.
reason for that is because there's a split in the movement. There's the people who want to smoke, and there's the people who want to get better. And they usually clash over the THC argument because if you just want to smoke it, once you burn it, you're destroying the CBD content anyway, so you're not getting any medicinal value. The THC, mostly because it's a psychoactive and it inhibits the receptors in your brain, it reduces and eliminates your ability to feel the pain. It does increase the appetite. It does make you drowsy, so you get a good night's sleep, things like that. But medicinal purposes, if you want it for medicine, you want to use the cannabidiol isolate. And they've done studies, and there's arguments going back and forth, but the science says that without CBD, THC is not medicinal. So you could have CBD with THC or without, but you can't take the CBD out. THC alone is not medicinal.
I understand, but I'm just trying to say that I'm for both sides of the argument there.
Oh, I am too. If you
Uh,
look, the science on that is clear as well.
yeah.
There's nothing, it's more dangerous to be on pharmaceuticals or alcohol
Well,
or even just stress.
that was my next point. Is that just for okay, forget it, no problem. If you're just getting the THC, you know what? Good for stress. Good for a lot of these, legitimate organic psychological issues that people have that they're taking these poisons for from big pharma. I would much rather see these guys on, on with a bag of weed than the SSRIs. you know, a lot
Absolutely.
of them, not all of them, obviously. Obviously each to his own and each to their own purpose, what they choose to do and what is best for them in their own judgment. But my point is that I don't see anything wrong with either side of that issue. You understand? So I'm just clarifying that because this guy went at me like and I was like out of all the stuff that I discussed on my show, this is your problem with me. Really? Okay, no problem. And I'm trying to tell the guy, listen, I'm not saying I smoke a lot, but I don't object, and I don't object to what anybody does so long as they don't harm another person. You can do what you want all day. This is my attitude personally. So, and that's, and meanwhile, this is, pretty much an innocuous thing as far as I'm concerned anyway. It's a plant. Deal with it. Uh, you know, that's where I stand on. And I just want to make that clear because it was just funny, man. It was like paragraph after paragraph of a guy giving me crap over it, and I didn't realize that there was a sort of big split now among, of course, Daniel Lewis Crumpton, who's from ZenInTheCar.com, gave me a totally different. Here's his name coming up again, but gave me a totally different viewpoint on this, and I actually love it if you if you sort of examine it from the old Rastafarian point of view, where it should kind of just be inclusive as far as your right to worship in your own particular way. If it's part of your religious practices, which don't necessarily have to be codified, of course, you can find justification in the Christian Bible for utilizing herbs for all kinds of things. But
And slavery and genocide and rape and incest and
yes, well, okay,
pedophilia,
yes, that too.
resource allocation, one world government, new world order, one world religion.
Well, point is, you can utilize the Bible for any purpose, but that's where I'm coming anymore. But I was trying to go positive there, Suzette. You want to bring me into that discussion? We can do that. But,
I'm sorry.
boy, are we going to piss people off. That's fine.
That's okay. That's okay. Sometimes the anger is useful. Use the force, Luke.
Yeah, well, listen, the Sith have a point. Use your anger. It makes you strong.
Oh, no. See, now you just created a straw man argument. No. Now you just compared us to the Sith. No.
But in a way, they make sense. They did. Okay. See, I flipped that whole allegory on its head because I'm just nuts. But, so I don't go with the whole Masonic storyline out of it, although everybody else seizes upon that. But anyway. All right, let's not get too weird here, Suzanne.
It's a myth. It's a modern-day myth. Read Joseph Campbell. It's a myth. We've got hero journey myths from time and memoriam. It's how we tell each other stories and what to avoid, like dragons in the water and caves that might lead to hell. Did you know there are 23 locations on this planet that have been classified as gateways to hell?
I've actually, I think you're underestimating the number of places. I've
No.
no, because I used to read on this stuff all the time, and I read crazy literature. I mean, stuff that you couldn't even find in the old public library when you wanted it, and when people knew what the hell a library was. I used to read all kinds of weird stuff, and you wouldn't believe the strange things that I've read. I mean, I think every state in this union has had a spot that people thought was some sort of a gateway into another dimension, and definitely a dark dimension. And, at the end of the day, almost all of them, when they seize upon it with their sort of, Christian ideology, they've seen them all as gateways into hell for one reason or another. Anyway...
I'm talking about literal where monks and priests went and investigated and decided that sanctioned them, even put a cross up to mark the place that this is an actual entrance into hell.
Well, but why should the monks only get to pick where these gateways are? Damn it, that's not right.
Because they are the masters of the book. They are the interpreters of the scripture. So.
Oh, so they're literally the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I understand now.
So give your coins to them instead of the ferryman on the river Styx.
And I do like Karen. Anyways. Interesting stuff. So let's go a little stranger, anyways, because one of the most talked about things, because it's funny to me what happens with your articles. A lot of times the images get talked about more than the articles do, and then people read
really?
articles. Yeah. Like, it's funny to me because, okay, this jumped out at me because, see, I'm one of these Star Wars, Star Trek guys. I do appreciate both of them. As entertainment, always did, and I guess that's just part of my childish nature still, still going at it. And, no apologies to any other Star Trek or Star Wars fan. I don't give a damn. I do it my way. All right, now, the Enterprise here, sort of looking like it's coming almost out of probably one of the early Star Trek movies. It's the old school Enterprise, a la Captain Kirk kind of looking thing, and going into warp.
Right.
As it would, and there's a pretty interesting reason for that. And, people didn't even read the article. And they started coming to me going, "Are you serious with this? Come on, Chuck. What is going on?" And I'm like, "Listen, man. First of all, I've had people on this show who have talked about the fact that you don't need propulsion to create travel. That the magnetic world, the energetic universe as it stands, provides many different opportunities if you sort of don't go according to the standard scientific canon regarding physics."
You're
Okay.
talking about Newton. Okay, Newton's three laws of motion. One of those laws of motion talks about the fact that in order to propel forward, you have to push back with as much force. That's how we are able to think about how you walk. You propel yourself forward, you're actually falling forward, and your other foot catches you. And so, with as much force as you're going with one foot forward out, falling forward, you're pushing back with the other foot against the floor. And this is how we move. This is how propulsion has always been on this planet. This is how we understand it thanks to Newton. The M drive, and this is scientifically sound. I wouldn't be reporting on it if it wasn't, because I don't do batshit crazy. So they have actually discovered a way to create a vacuum which simulates how space is, because in space you cannot use Newtonian physics to propel yourself forward. So you have to use something else if you're especially going to travel interstellar. Well, they have found out that they can create an artificial vacuum around the M drive, which is this engine that they've created, and using a minimal amount of thrust, they can move at exorbitant speeds. And this would make it possible to traverse the galaxy not in hundreds of thousands of years, but in 20 or 30 years.
Well, see, this is the thing: is this concept was sort of briefly touched upon by some of my guests who were talking about free energy, and the way you can utilize Earth batteries, and there are ways to create these these coils which have particular, in other words, there's a lot more to the game here. There's there's a whole lot more possibilities, and they don't necessarily want everybody to know this stuff because there might be ways to recreate these things in an interesting fashion that would cause a revolution among all sorts of travel. If you can sort of change gears regarding how you think of propulsion, right? Like you're saying, when you're creating this, this sort of bubble, which sounds a hell of a lot like one of those warp bubbles that used to be on Star Trek. Always interesting to me how it's like the Star Trek universe often provides us with the with the precognitive ideas that seem to develop later. Look at your tablets and look at the stuff that was on the Next Generation. Kind of similar to what they were using. Of course, everybody brings up the cell phones and how that stuff, was designed. It wasn't designed based on the Star Trek design, or did it come from blah blah blah? Chicken or the egg, everything else. But this is really fascinating to me because these sort of governors over what could be are changing at this point, and probably have been changed for a long time. I mean, the second that this kind of stuff leaks out, to me it says that there was 20, 30 years already in the pockets of these guys before they ever decided to let something go. I don't know how you feel about that, but that to me means that they're probably 3, 4 generations ahead of what it is we're talking about in a general sense.
Well, the other way of looking at that is when you have a generation, the baby boomers, when they were kids, they were watching Star Trek and teenagers. And the silent generation was actually the generation that put us to the moon. Uh, that was the generation that created most of the technology the precursors to the technology that we have now. And so their children were watching Star Trek and a lot of robot movies, and this inspired a lot of people to make that happen. And I think if you look at it another way, you now have those people who are older, who have worked throughout their career, who have been inspired by what they saw and put themselves in positions where they would educate themselves to get to positions in NASA, in engineering, in quantum physics that didn't exist back then, but in academia. where they would be
Hmm.
able to test and engineer and actually create prototypes of things that they thought about while they were sitting in front of the television as children. And so that's why 20, 30 years, 40 years later, you see this stuff, and it looks a lot like, and it's reminiscent of the technology that we saw in these movies and in these television shows. And the reason being is because that's how it was envisioned to the people who built them when they were in their formidable years.
See, and that's the thing. It's actually a sort of a a continuous cycle. One feeds on the other. The innovation is fed by the inspiration, which is also fed by the innovation, and so on and so forth. And this is what actually goes on. So both things are correct in my mind. People had ideas that they couldn't quite bring to life, and somebody took that as a challenge. I mean, listen, let's break it down to a simpler time and think about, gee, the first time I saw a Superman comic, I certainly wanted to hope that I could fly someday, you know. And I know that sounds dumb, but if you're 3, 4 years old and you see a guy who can fly, you kind of think that might be really cool to do. And somebody else who's more inclined to participate in these things and sort of test the boundaries of reality, from a scientific standpoint, it's actually really remarkable that they could actually be influenced by some of the more campy aspects of, well, popular culture, right? Um, and also find me a guy in the scientific field who is not, at least somewhat of a geek for this kind of stuff. At one point in their life they were. So, one influences the other, which in turn influences the other, right?
Absolutely.
It's like a cyclical relationship. But this story is pretty fascinating because, again, like I said, people were like looking at the article and going, "Oh, come on." And I'm going, "No, to me this seems like a feasible concept actually." Because nobody really looked at utilizing much more than the very basics of like earthbound physics up to this point, and a lot of us are still stuck in that paradigm. That doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't all sorts of other possibilities, you know. And isn't that the most interesting part about innovation? Is not when somebody creates something which is well founded on the previous product, the previous innovation per se, but when somebody actually develops something that is wholly revolutionary, regarding this stuff. And meanwhile, it's not really all that revolutionary because it is actually based on a lot of things that are not part of the considerations of the everyday public. So you seized upon the imagination of some people with that image, but on the other hand, it was like, oh, come on. And I found it funny because it was like, well, now I know who's actually got the open mind among the people that are telling me about these articles that are going out and what they think. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard when people believe something. That's when they get stuck. That's when they shut their mind off. Once you believe that to be true, everything else is speculatory because if you base that belief on your personal paradigm or take it into your personal paradigm and make it part of you, then if that belief is wrong, if the information you believe is wrong, then you're wrong, and no one wants to be wrong. So we have a real ego problem when it comes to information. We also have a discernment problem. We really just don't know how to discern between what's true and what's false. And we make emotional decisions based on emotional reactions to information that may or may not be true. And if it is true, the emotional reaction becomes the definer. And if it isn't true, the emotional reaction becomes the definer. So that problem coupled with our personal paradigm and our ego, it's very difficult for people to have an open mind and say, well, maybe that information was true 20 years ago. But, science is not uh, a field where everything is set in stone. If new evidence comes out, then they change the theory. Then it's a living thing that's always constantly open to change and new ideas. And as we become aware of different modes of, like, let's say transportation, like we're talking about with the M drive, then we open up our paradigm and we change the theory and we allow for new possibilities. But if we don't have that open mind, if we have our ego involved and whatnot, then we're not going to progress. We're just going to stay where we are because what was true 1,000 years ago is true today. And look outside, that is absolutely not true. But tell some people that and they freak out.
Well, yeah, I mean, wireless communication would have been, something you were burned at the stake for not too long ago. I mean, things like that.
Or maybe saying that the world is not a snow globe and the Earth revolves around the sun.
Oh, yeah, that too. I mean, Galileo problems. Anyway, wow, it seems to always go back to the Catholics. Oh, okay.
I think it's all of it. It's all of it. At some form or another, if you look back, the erosion of society has always been tied to that.
It's always tied to some sort of a faith-based oppression of one sort or another. So, anyway, there is a triad in my estimation, but
there has to be.
Yeah,
it's always the three.
It's always the three, isn't it? And I just that's one point of that equilateral triangle in my estimation is the Vatican. But okay. No, I'm not going to do the Vatican thing tonight.
Well, they're really, they've been pissed off since Martin Luther tacked those papers up on the door and splintered everything off. Before that, they were a one-world religion, and they had it all. If the king wanted to start a war with another country, he had to go and talk to the Pope and get an army. Or if the mayor of the town wanted to go fight the next town over, he had to go to the archbishop because he was the only one with soldiers.
Yeah. Interesting too,
There's your New World Order for you, folks.
That's definitely part of the triad at this point. But at one point, it did seem like it was its own thing. Well, see, I told you, you never know what I'm gonna go to on this show. I go all over the place, and it's fun to have you on because at least you'll go with me.
Yeah, I'm like your dog. I just want to sit in the passenger seat with the window down.
Oh, don't say that because somebody will isolate that quote right there. I'm like your dog. That's not good.
If they wanted to isolate quotes, they could go and listen to Hardline. There's lots of things you could isolate if you want.
Oh, I know.
There's tons of stuff on there.
I was thinking about that just listening to a couple of your shows. Somebody took this and this out of context. Man. You would have it could just be extremely amusing if somebody put together like 15 minutes of your out of context stuff, and it's just hysterical. It probably me too, but I don't even want to think about it. I can't listen to my own shows anymore.
Well, if anybody wants to, I would appreciate it because it would be free advertising. So please go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean, I even thank people that decide that they. I've had somebody threaten to like, I'm going to go on a campaign because you're just an annoying self promoter and this and that, and I'm going to just do this and that. And I said, you're going to go on a campaign to talk about how I promote myself to try and smear me as somebody who promotes himself too much. Okay, sure, more power to you, brother. Let me know if you need any photographs or anything. I'll provide them for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And he didn't do it, which kind of made me mad because I was like, "Listen, I'll give you material. You want to go on some sort of anti-Ochelli campaign? Go right ahead."
I say start your own. Don't wait for them to figure something out. Start your own rumor. Go ahead.
If only. If only I was that devious about it, but I'm just I don't know. I'm not interested in it, but I did want to watch and see what would happen if people did that. I thought that would be funny. So what can you do? So meanwhile, of course, the Star Trek thing in the M drive is not the only thing going on over there, but I mean, I want to let you get to some key points because I know I cut you off and took you into a weird direction there. Let's continue on about this though, because the M drive or the EM drive, depending on where you see it written down, and now a couple of other people have kind of jumped on the story. I thought I saw you come up with it first, but who knows what the order of anything is anymore? Because everybody tries to say that they were the first one to come up with things. So, anyhow,
it's like, oh my God, I broke the story. I'm the only one who has ever read or written anything on this, and it's ridiculous to me. There are billions and there's probably quadrillions now of websites on the internet. Seriously.
Hmm.
It's impossible. And with the Google search engine and all the other algorithms that Yahoo and Bing and everybody else uses, you're looking at a tailor-made for you internet. You have no idea what's on the other side of that bubble that is you and what they're giving you based on your search keyword searches.
Yeah.
So for someone to say that is absolutely ridiculous. It makes me laugh so hard.
Oh, I know, and that's the funny thing is you actually have to really go out of your way now. And no matter what your browser is, no matter what your service provider is, it doesn't matter anymore. It is absolutely becoming so custom made that it's actually sort of isolated people into particular areas. You
Yeah.
know,
Like
which
sometimes on I like to watch YouTube at the end of the night just to relax. And sometimes I'll watch something that is totally out of my norm, completely out of my norm, and screw up my analytics on YouTube for a while, which is hilarious to me because then the suggestions are absolutely ridiculous. It's stuff I would never look at. But
yeah.
and keep doing that if you want, but it never gets me out of that bubble. I can never escape the bubble that has been created for me on the internet.
Oh yeah, I'll give you an example actually, because obviously my 10-month-old doesn't have his own account or anything.
Not
So
yet?
no, not yet, not yet.
Oh.
I was thinking about starting a public figure page for him though, just because.
Well,
But
you're going to have to get him on Twitter before you put him in kindergarten. Otherwise, he'll be behind and he'll be made fun of by the other kids.
oh, I know, I
Uh,
know. He's allegedly not allowed to be on Facebook, but you see, there is a way around that. You can create a public figure page. All right, now. um, but the thing is, like I go on and just I know it's kind of silly, but I just let him watch different colors and shapes and things, and those standard goofy videos where they count and they show him numbers and things like that, because I want his language to also involve that, because I know he's going to have to interface with the surrogate world. I know that that's a reality. I'd prefer that he could avoid it, but I don't think that's going to be possible. I think as time goes on, actually, this is going to be antiquated by the time he's really of age and everything else. But I just figure let him experience that as well. So it's kind of funny because between my documentaries that I'm searching for, my JFK stuff I'm searching for, and all of that stuff, like every once in a while I just go to YouTube. And I don't even put in anything. I don't even sign in, but automatically it's like, 9/11 the Psy Opera and Wheels on the Bus. Like these are what to watch on YouTube, coincidentally, for me.
that's really good. Yeah. Yo Gabba Gabba mixed in with 10 deadly things that aspartame will do to you.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that kind of happened. Big pharma and what's wrong with our food and all this stuff, and then on top of it, it was like ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and like I was like, wow, that's pretty funny right there, because what does that say?
What does that say about you?
It's like and here's stuff on Ruby Ridge and David Koresh because you were watching this and this, and meanwhile we suggest Sesame Street. Okay, cool. I like it. Okay. But anyway, yeah, I mean, between that and the music, that's another funny thing is because they turn around and they take because I'm like a hard rock, heavy metal guy mostly, but I listen to all kinds of music. So, like, music suggestions will come up for me, and they are hysterically funny because it's like like old school gangsta rap. Payday Monsanto comes up. Megadeth, Black Sabbath. Oh, and Mary Had a Little Lamb animated. So, like stuff like that. I love it. I love it. It's just like, what kind of psychosis is that? But thank you anyway. What to watch on YouTube. All right. Sorry. I one of these days I just want to read the list because it's getting weirder and weirder because I enter the strangest. Sometimes I do purposely put in just search terms that don't make any sense to see what happens, and they still tie it back to like just a keyword here or there that would have to do something, with conspiracy stuff or with news or with radio shows or whatever. Like they always tie it back to me one way or another, even when I'm trying to look for something that has nothing to do with anything that I'm interested in normally. Oh, and also, yeah, cartoons too. Cartoons come up, but that's my fault because I like Family Guy and The Simpsons and all that. So, all right, yeah, yeah. Look, I got to decompress once in a while because I sat and watched because I was trying to explain something to somebody and I couldn't fully explain it because we were talking about the whole thing with Ruby Ridge and exactly how I felt that was a dicey issue, and then I wanted to go back and get the footage from it and everything. So this is how this came up recently, and it kept tying it to like somehow or other, like JFK assassination stuff was being tied to Ruby Ridge, and I'm like, this is really bizarre, man. Like, why is this happening? Like there's no correlation for that. But okay. Anyway, enough of that. Let's move on to something. Oh, again, I didn't even let you finish about this M drive, did I?
Oh, no, no, we can totally move on. I think we beat it down.
Okay. Look, as long as you're happy with it, we'll just move on. Let's see. Well, of course, you have the interesting. Again, I actually like your images though. They crack me up in a lot of cases. The tape over the mouth. Stop killing journalism. That was pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And let's see, what was that called? Study reveals well, let's see now. Of course, everything running like sludge, even though I had it pulled up beforehand.
Study reveals how journalists have become an endangered species.
That's the complete sentence. Very good. I'm looking at the short, link to the sentence, and I'm going, okay. So, but the image is interesting because you see the nose and where the mouth should be, and then what looks like some electrical tape, pretty much, over the mouth of what may or may not be a male or a female here. Stop killing journalism is the words that are placed on the black electrical tape space there. And what are we talking about here, Suzanne?
We're talking about something serious. We're talking about how the wealthy owners of major media control all of the media. The 2015 annual report on the world press freedom uh, conducted a study, and they showed that only 14% of the global population enjoys a semblance of freedom of the press, while 42% have a partial free press, and 44% have no freedom of the press at all. And it's a very lengthy article, but I highly recommend it, especially if you go about two-thirds down, where I talk about Vladimir Putin's declaration of war on dissension and Project Network, which is how he is coercing the next generation, the Russian millennials, to have a love of the motherland and a new foundation of patriotism, asking themselves, what would Putin do? Because he is a model of male behavior. They also push conservative based values on Orthodox religion, which doesn't surprise me. Seems to be a coalescing of extreme right wing conservative leaders, government leaders all over the world, coalescing into this. We have to ban same-sex marriage. We have to adhere to biblical principles. We have to have theocratic rule in our government, and this is happening all over the world. And I really wanted to add this in there because that's part of the dissension of media, is that it doesn't toe that line of thinking that we can have a society that is not ruled by outdated fairy tales.
Oh, there we go. Am I still on?
Yes, I can
There.
hear you now. Yeah.
Ah, you know, I don't understand what goes. I told you there's something wrong with my machine today. I'm gonna have to do something when I get off here. Wow. I was in the middle of saying there's this part of your article. You didn't even hear any of that, did I? Did you?
No, no, we
Okay.
didn't hear any of it.
Lovely. Okay, I was like, I hope I'm still on, and I look over and I realize I'm not. That's good. Okay. So back to what I was trying to say before I got blocked. Let's just put it that way. All right. Here's the thing. When you look at the streamlining of information, entertainment, and everything else, and it comes down to these 6 companies, and of course you cited here, and this is nothing unique to my show or to me at all. I like to see that other people understand this concept, and I'm glad that you're putting it out there once again. Of course, this is old hat to you and I, but definitely necessary to once again drive this home with people. Is that you got 6 companies that own 90% of American media. So in the alleged United States of America, you have 6 giant corporate interests, namely GE, which is Comcast, NBC, Universal, okay, all that kind of good stuff. You have News Corp, which is Fox, Wall Street Journal, New York Post, right? All that kind of good stuff. Disney, NBC, ESPN, another conglomerate. Okay, and in case you're getting these confused, you know what? Let me number them. And they're not necessarily in any particular order. So, number 1, start again. GE, Comcast, NBC, Universal Pictures, Focus Features. Number 2, News Corp, Fox, Wall Street Journal, New York Post, okay? This is not all of their assets, by the way. It's just a good sampling of what the front line looks like. Okay, Disney, which also covers, this is number 3, Disney covers ABC, ESPN, okay, Pixar, Miramax, Marvel Studios, okay. Number 4, which is Viacom, which is MTV, Nick Jr., Nickelodeon, BET, CMT, Paramount Pictures, a whole host of things. I think Comedy Central's under them as well. Okay, then, of course, number 5, Time Warner, which covers CNN, HBO, Time Warner, all of that stuff that comes from them, and that includes, various assets, although they used to be a large music-producing company as well. Well, I don't know what they're doing nowadays as far as that goes, but still producing a lot of the information and entertainment. And, of course, number 6, which is CBS, Showtime, Smithsonian Channel, NFL.com, Jeopardy, 60 Minutes. Again, another sampling of what their main frontline assets look like. But they actually encompass nearly everything that's available on the menu to the American public. These 6 corporations. I mean, and when you're saying 90%, I think you're being conservative, because in one way or another, what is that 10% made of even at this point in time? I don't know. Not counting independent media like the internet and stuff like that. I'm talking about mainstream kind of stuff. What is actually represented in that 10% anymore? I have trouble finding anything that's completely independent. I don't know about you, but what do you see?
Some local stations, some cable access, some local newspapers would be included in that, but it's very few. And the reason why they haven't been bought up is because they don't have a big enough reach. It's not worth it to them monetarily to invest in that. But as soon as they, get a following, they'll get a call or a knock on the door or an offer.
Well, right, and a lot of them, like, a lot of the local newspapers, people don't realize are actually owned by one company, which is a subsidiary of another company, which does lead back to one of these other 6. Even like somewhat larger but still local newspapers, like, say, in a state like New Jersey, which is not a very large state but does have a large population. A lot of them are owned by Gannett, or on the tail end of things, they're owned by a company who's owned by a company who's eventually owned by News Corp, things like that. Okay? So sometimes it's not even immediately obvious, but even the independents are pretty much controlled in one way or another, But I guess though, you have to allow for the possibility that there's still some local stuff that is just too small for them to even bother with. But I guess that's your 10% nationwide. That was weird. Did you hear that?
That was funky.
I don't know where it came from. I told you something very strange is happening today. Don't know what it is, but, well, we'll just keep our seatbelts on. We are still on the air, though.
Get out the disco ball.
That reminds me of when oh, man. I immediately flashed to opening up for a band called Nuclear Assault in New Jersey one time. And this guy was in a place and he was complaining, the singer for Nuclear Assault was complaining that there was a disco ball on the ceiling of the club he was playing. And realizing how small of a draw they had at that point, because that day I sold more tickets than they did and I was nobody. So I was cracking up, but this guy was like, "Oh, I want the disco ball on." He's yelling at the lighting guys to bring the disco ball out because he wanted to play, his stuff to this disco ball. And I don't know why that just came into my mind. I think it's just because you said disco ball. That was weird, though, man. I almost thought we were going to have a club scene here. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to get up and dance a minute, but it stopped.
Nice. Anyway, so these 6 we're talking about serious stuff, and all of a sudden, right? So these 6 corporations pretty much, in one way or another, even vicariously sometimes, control a lot of these, assets that a lot of people think are even, their local news, their local this, their local affiliate, of whatever, or they think they're independent TV stations, but independent TV stations are impossible to find anymore. Most radio stations, even terrestrial radio, as lame as it's become as a medium at this point, is still sort of,
Clear Channel.
Clear Channel, or somebody who is eventually, if you go all the way back, is owned by one of these, Clear Channel or Viacom, or somebody winds up owning the airwaves in one way or another. Even when they're competing with each other in the same market, it's pretty funny. Sometimes there's like 3, 4 competing with each other for the top spot, which is kind of hysterical. And they still use Arbitron ratings. Did you know that?
Of course they do, because they don't have another system. It's very, very difficult to calculate how many listeners you have on terrestrial radio. It's near impossible. That's why they have all those sweepstakes and giveaways and text us here and, the next 30 minutes, blah, blah, blah.
Well, last year, you know what I got? I got one of those mailings where they sent me $2, I kid you not, 2 literal paper dollars in an envelope, and asked me if I would just simply send this back in their postage-provided envelope, stating that I would tell them what radio stations I listen to if they send me something else.
$2 whole dollars?
$2. So then
Wow.
Now listen, I wanted to find out how this works, right? So I sent it back to them, and they sent me a $5. And they sent me a $5 bill, and they said, please tell us what radio stations you listen to. And I said, okay. So I gave them a couple of ideas of stuff that I would listen to in the local market and sent it back and left most of the form blank. They sent me a third thing, which was a little booklet.
Oh, I thought you were going to say a 10. Come on.
No. This time it came with a check, Suzanne, because it was $20.
Oh, a check.
A check for $20. Yes, ma'am.
The check cost more than the $20.
I just found it completely amusing that this was still being done, and that I was going to represent, they do stuff like that, and then they declared that one mailing probably represents, 1,000 or 2,000 listeners in a particular city. So I just wanted to skew the numbers a little bit. So I gave them all kinds of weird stuff that I know there's no way in hell anybody in my community listens to, and I purposely skewed the numbers. So if anybody looks in eastern North Carolina and finds that about 6 months ago the Arbitron ratings looked weird, it's my fault. Okay.
He was swayed by the $2. He gave his soul to the devil for $2.
Well, I thought it was a fair price to scratch down a couple of nonsensical things in a log. $2, $5, and then finally $20. So I got $27 for about, 15 minutes of my time. I thought that was really nice, actually.
Now we know what your price is. $20, guys. Everybody knows. Send them $20.
Listen, if you do send me $20, you will get my attention. So, because that's how broke I am. All right.
And don't send him a check, for the love of God. Don't send him a check because
Please don't, because I had a hell of a time cashing the thing because I don't use the banking system anymore. So, so that was hard. That was actually a challenge to cash their $20 check. I was kind of mad. I was hoping that they would just simply send a cash, cash again. Because they sent cash in the envelope, and I'm thinking to myself, how many of these actually get thrown away as junk mail, too? You know? So people are probably throwing away money. So if you see something from the Arbitron rating service in your mailbox, at least open it up and take their cash. You might as well have a cup of coffee on them, if nothing else. Okay. I know I'm all over the place tonight. I'm in a strange mood, and strange things are happening, Suzanne. So back to the serious issue, though, really quickly. You're like, really? Yeah, I know, but okay. So we were talking about these 6 corporations which do control, and that, like I said, that's not news to anybody who listens to a show like this or anything. Obviously, we're sort of the anti-mainstream, as it were. Although I hate to identify myself as anti-anything because it's a pain in the neck and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to get into logical fallacies in the next couple of weeks about how, you sort of it's sort of more effective to declare yourself as something as opposed to being anti-something else, because then you're actually lending legitimacy to the thing that you're standing against and all that. But for now, let's just say that we're sort of the anti-mainstream people, and therefore this is one of those things that is rather disconcerting when you have everything consolidated down to 6 very large corporate interests controlling the information stream for the most part for the majority of the American public. Becomes a little bit of a, depressing issue in a way. But anyway, what is it that we mean, though, with the beginning of this article about stop killing journalism? I mean, you were talking about Putin and his moves, but this is not something that just goes on in the Russian Federation, is it?
No, it goes on all over. The problem is, again, we don't understand how to discern things. We don't use logic and reasoning. We use emotional reaction. We allow ourselves to be propagandized to when it suits our personal paradigm, and when it doesn't, it's disinfo. Uh, we adhered to opinion-based news back in the 80s. I mean, I remember clearly a lot of tabloid journalism coming onto the airwaves, not just Entertainment Tonight, but Hard Copy and First Edition and all those other shows, where opinion-based news became factually based news. So the precursor to Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow and Bill O'Reilly and all the people we love, Sean Hannity, top on the list, Megyn Kelly, gotta love her hair, and all these other people who just spout out their opinions and throw in some factoids, and then all of a sudden we're regurgitating this the next day at the water cooler, so to speak, and we think that we're informed. We don't know anything about anything, and yet we know so much, and we make decisions, absolutely ridiculously stupid decisions, based on other people's opinions. And I think that maybe we should take a look at that. Maybe their opinions aren't very good because we're making decisions based on them, and the outcome of these decisions is really terrible, and we don't like them. So maybe we should stop listening to opinions of people and start looking at facts and evidence.
Well, wouldn't that be rather amazing? People actually, examining the reality as opposed to simply taking their cues from their appeal to authority, which, in an odd way, it's like these people are sort of installed as the alleged figureheads on high. Like, I could never understand how Bill O'Reilly was really taken seriously. I mean, I gotta confess, I kind of liked the guy at one point. But I liked him from transitioning from, Inside Edition to, his own thing. I thought that was pretty remarkable, and thought that was kind of fascinating for a guy who wasn't particularly good looking or anything like that, right? This is the way I saw it. Hope for the rest of us who, or at least let me just speak for myself. Hope for myself, who has a face for radio, that there is a possibility that you could possibly excel in the news media business without having to be pretty. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's what I thought of about him. Other than that, I mean, he's kind of laughable. I mean, Inside Edition, for God's sake, take a look at some of the stuff he was reporting on. Not just the JFK clips and things, which I saved, which are now really funny. Okay? Because he gets busted, after writing his books and everything else, making up stories and convoluting things and being hyperbolic about his factoids, even. Okay.
He's a storyteller. He's a weaver of tales.
Yeah, you know what? That's a perfectly accurate description, Plum.
He's really angry about it. He tells angry tales.
Yeah, this is true, too, right? And, of course, that kind of appeals to, or at least used to appeal to, the Fox listener. Aren't they kind of dying off generationally?
Yeah, the average Fox listener, they only track up to 65, and they know that it's 65 plus. They just don't know how old they are.
Yeah, right. I wonder if they're falling asleep or, if somebody just happened to turn it on in their IC unit
And they
section.
can't get to the clicker.
They can't get to the clicker. I don't know. It's gotten to that point, right? And I don't know. Fox News is too funny anyway because I got to be honest with you. When I sit down and I start to look at everybody else sort of covering things from one particular way, I play a little game and I call it, let's see exactly what Fox News is covering at this particular moment when something else is happening live. And generally speaking, it's usually, let's make sure we keep you on the right side of the paradigm, regardless of what else is going on in the world. We'll give you a Fox News alert because, Hillary burped at a luncheon. But other than that, let's stay on this side of the paradigm, at least until we get to our later night programming where we publicize, our authors and things like that. And gotta love, like I said, a guy like Bill O'Reilly, once again, who's got killing somebody in his mind all the time, every time he allegedly writes a book. What have we done? We've done killing Patton, killing Jesus, killing Kennedy, killing Lincoln, everything except,
Killing
like I
my
said,
career.
that's the one I want to read.
That's the next one.
But that's the one I want to read, Suzanne, because I think he's run his course. you know, oof. Anyway, of course, you also did occupy yourself partially with Baltimore recently. Wonder if you want to touch upon that in the article you wrote about that.
Baltimore is an incredible situation because I should not know this man's name.
Well,
I should not know Freddie Gray's name.
and here's the thing: I'm gonna shut up for this one because I've
Okay.
already said a lot about this, and your article was different from a lot of other people's takes on this, and I want you to sort of lay this one out, if you would, kind of by yourself, and I'm just going to really be quiet here as best I can.
Well,
So go ahead. You should not know Freddie Gray's name.
yeah, we should not know this man's name. Not that he wasn't, a wonderful person to know. I don't know, but we know about him because he was taken on a rough ride. And this is something that goes on in Baltimore. They've done it for a long time, and they've been sued several times for years. They've caused people to become quadriplegics and die in comas. Before Freddie, the most recent was a 27-year-old librarian from Johns Hopkins University. How scary could she be? What they do is they do not strap you in. They put you in the back of the van, and then they just drive. They make sudden stops. They take corners, 30, 40 miles an hour. So you're thrown around the back of the van. It's a way to brutalize you without actually having to touch you. And this is exactly what happened. I listened to the district attorney, that brave woman, 35-year-old African American woman, um, explaining the preliminary charges and the storyline that they were able to tell before the trial, and it fits in exactly with Rough Rides. So I think that what's going on in Baltimore is systemic of this racial divide that we have sort of skirted under the rug since the civil rights movement, and has become a major um, political uh, talking point, because now all of a sudden Republican right-wing conservative ideals are now becoming mainstream. And so the racism that is rife in those states, in that area of the country, not to say that it's not in other parts of the country, but it's really, really deep in those areas. And so we know these names of these people who've been brutalized: Walter Scott and Freddie Gray and Tamir Rice and Michael Brown, and many others that I have not mentioned. But we know these names because they have been brutalized, and also because we're filming the police. We have to keep doing that. I know I'm kind of going off topic a little bit, but thank God for Cop Block and for Film the Police for inspiring us. And regardless of this body cam, crap that's going on, and the contracts for Taser, the DOJ is even in a capital venture with Taser to offer $20 million worth of Axum body cameras to precincts all over the country. All they have to do is apply. Taxpayer paid for, by the way. And so they're wanting to film us. We need to keep filming them. We need to just keep filming them regardless of what happens, because that's the reason why we know about Freddie Gray and Tamir Rice and Eric Gardner and Michael Brown. And now we have 6 indicted cops, finally. And everybody tried to make isn't it interesting that 3 of them are black? No, it's not. Racism is not just for one color over another.
Well, and here's the thing, that this is actually endemic in a lot of places where these rough rides occur, where, the cops have various different ways of handling people. This has always been really quietly done, and I find it interesting that, that the mainstream is hammering on this, and I hate to say this because people give me crap for it, but really it's not that uncommon an occurrence that a guy gets knocked around, that somebody gets hurt, that somebody gets, seriously injured. Depending on where you are, that might vary a little bit. Sometimes they don't strap you in. Sometimes they handle you a certain way. You wind up having to get dragged on your face a little bit. This is the way that you get arrested if you're a certain kind of person in a certain kind of area, and that's not necessarily all about your race. It could be about, listen, I've been all right. As a juvenile, I was a white kid arrested in black areas. They were not very kind to me. Okay, being taken in, I was unnecessarily roughly treated more than once. You know what I mean? I got knocked around. I wound up, my head split open, requiring stitches hours later because of flashlights and things like this. This is the kind of thing that has gone on, but it's gotten worse, I think, in recent times, and this is one of the things that kills me about this, is that it's not a racial issue. It's really an issue of like an us versus them thing that's being promoted, and I'm sick of it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. On that line, the argument is that, when O.J. Simpson was acquitted, you didn't see one white person riot. But when Rodney King, you saw rioting. Well, actually, you do see white people riot quite often. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Maria.
Yeah, you white people, you riot.
Maria Hitler and you are going to agree on this. I bet I know exactly where you're going, because it's funny, white people, when they riot, it's usually stuff, like, hey, after a sporting event.
It's absolutely after a sporting event. I went and looked this up, and there were source links to every single one of these. Can I read these?
Yes.
There are source links, folks, to every single one of these. Go to OccupyCorporatism.com and look at this article. The article title is Freddie Gray, 7 Facts Behind Protest, National Guard, and Agitators. You can click on all the source links. Everything I'm about to say is absolutely true. Okay, you ready? You ready?
Yeah, I am with you. I'm having troubles, but I'm with you.
Okay, here we go. This is when white people riot, okay?
What's going on tonight, Suzanne? I can't get stuff to work. I'm telling you, man, this is just like a depressing move here. I hit my mute button, and it doesn't unmute even. I sound stupid here trying to jump in on the conversations, but I try to be quiet while you're talking.
I'm sorry, okay.
Man,
31 years ago, after the Detroit Tigers won the World Series, 8 rapes were reported, 1 person died, and an estimated 80 were injured because fans got a little too excited. Then in 1992, more than 1,000 fans were arrested and 100 cops were injured in a clash that cost $10 million in damage to the city of Chicago when the Chicago Bulls won the NBA championship. In 1999, the Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl. This inspired fans to destroy an estimated $160,000 worth of public property. In that same year, Michigan State lost to Duke during the NCAA Final Four, which inspired fans to riot, causing $250,000 worth of damage to local businesses and private property. When the Red Sox won the World Series in 2004, fans vandalized public and private property, set fires, and tried to overturn cars. Through eight participants were arrested. One woman died from injuries sustained from a police spray projectile that hit her in the head. 4 years ago, after Vancouver lost the Stanley Cup, 100 fans were arrested and 150 were injured after burning 15 cars and destroying over 50 local businesses. And in that same year, an unruly protest broke out in response to Coach Joe Pinheiro after being fired from accusations of sexual child abuse. This cost $190,000 in damage to the city and residents as protesters clashed with police. In 2014, after the San Francisco Giants won the World Series, fans took to the streets, which resulted in 40 arrests, 2 shootings, as couches were burned in the streets and buildings were covered in graffiti and businesses were vandalized. And earlier this year, 2015, after Ohio State University won the NCAA football championship, fans set more than 90 fires and tore down a goal post at the Ohio Stadium. That's when white people riot.
Right, and you know what? A couple of points that were brought up in the chat room that I think are beautiful is, what we would refer to as soccer riots. There are plenty of those football riots that happen, all across Europe, and the skin tone of the individuals involved there, although often mixed, quite not exactly dark. Not exactly dark usually for that stuff at all, is it? And, even locally, high school, somebody brought up high school football games cause riots sometimes. They sure do. I remember that there used to be some serious unrest every time Neptune and Asbury Park played each other in New Jersey. Sort of mini riots. This kind of stuff goes on all the time, and that's a mixed racial area, by the way. Not everybody in those particular pieces of unrest were black. Thank you very much. So this is not like, just an only black people riot. That's kind of an idiotic statement.
And what they riot for is interesting. White people riot when their team wins or loses.
Yeah.
Black people riot when they are being murdered and unjustly treated by police officers. Think about that for a minute.
Well, we all have to have our causes, don't we?
Yeah. So think about that. Just let it marinate just for a minute. All right. Don't judge it. Just let it sit there.
Yeah, I love it. JJ specifically, JJ Inc. said, yeah, don't even talk about soccer rights. You're right, man. Nobody even pays attention to those things anymore, but.
Well, it's just what it's indicative of is a set of values. Yeah. It's a value system. Some people care about inequality, and some people care about their football team.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And and there's been other reasons why there's been civil unrest, and there's been different riots throughout time. And I know we're making a joke about the sporting thing, but really there's a lot of those. There was plenty of these, middle-class white people that actually ended up in all sorts of civil unrest during, the time that we had the Vietnam protests and things that, depending on how you look at them, whatever, okay, but it's not like, only black people riot. That's just stupidity. And I see people arguing this. Comparing every single person that's involved in one of these protests to gang members and all this other stuff. And this is the kind of thing that has also really made me sick, because over time, you know, I go back to Dr. King's statement, which is that, again, rioting is, the language of those that are unheard. Well, what does that say, though, for the white people rioting at sporting events?
Well,
You know,
I can't even say it with a straight face.
you see what I'm getting at, though? It's like, yeah, I mean, really let it marinate. Let it marinate real deep in there. Because
Who's the schmuck? That's all I have to say. Who's the schmuck?
that's fine. That works for me. Oh, good Lord. And we've actually we only got like 30 minutes left. Can you believe
We've been laughing for like 35, 40 minutes of this.
Yeah, laughing, going through different. I'm sorry. I try to do more serious stuff with you, but it's just I'm just in this mood today, where I can't stay on topic. First of all, and my technology's not cooperating with me also. So, hooray! And then of course you had your little problem not realizing you weren't on the call there at the beginning. So it's all good though. This is just the day for this. But let's try to close it out with something a little more significant.
I've got a really good story that probably nobody read, and I know this about my really good stories. Nobody ever reads them. This is an amazing story. What happens when states become people?
Oh, you know what? That was the thing that I wanted to move to at the very end. But you know what? Let's do it now. Because obviously with, Citizens United and all the discussions there and how corporations are people and blah, 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 blah. Okay. This was kind of a striking headline. Okay, this is what happens when states become people. That's the headline on OccupyCorporatism.com. And of course, here we have, a pretty tame sort of image this time. So I think that's why you didn't get the attention, because, you have just a simple American flag, and what do we have behind it?
But it says equal justice under law, which is ironic because that's not what's happening.
Oh, no.
In Washington State, the Attorney General, Bob Ferguson, put out a press release because he just won a decision by the Washington Supreme Court giving the state of Washington the right to a jury trial, which is a constitutional right previously reserved for sentient flesh and blood citizens of the United States. But apparently now, your state can take you to court and require a jury trial and have similar rights to you, even though it's not alive.
Now, here's the weird thing about this, like, just the thing that jumps out into my mind first thing, because, well, I'm also a smartass, but the thing is, you're supposed to have a jury trial, and that jury should be made up of your peers, in quotes, right?
Right, so are they going to invite Alabama, Mississippi?
That's what I was going to say. Okay, listen, Boston, New York, Arkansas, you guys show up, and
Ohio's a little shady. We don't know about those guys.
That's true. That's true. But Michigan has not much else to do. So let's have them come in. They're not going to be able to get out of jury duty. Are you serious? And California will show up as long as you have, free
water.
Water that is not in a Nestle bottle. They'll come and see you. So there you go. There's half your job done for jury selection. But I mean, in all seriousness, what is this about? This sort of grafting of, citizens' rights onto these entities. I mean, this is what the larger issue is to me, is that, when corporations are people, states are given the same rights. What is going on here, Suzanne?
They're humanizing non-sentient entities. A corporation is an entity in a legal sense, and humans are entities. So it encompass states and governments and corporations all in the same lot. And there you go. You have the humanization of something that is not human. And what it means is that eventually these corporations and these governments will have the same rights as you do. And that may not seem like a big deal to most people, but think about the rights that you have. Think about the ordinances and the laws in your city that govern you, and then state and federal, and then apply all of that to the state itself or the every corporation that you patronize. And then all of a sudden it becomes, whoa, wait a minute. Why do they have equal rights? It's a board of directors. It's not. It's a group of people. It's not one person. I am one person unless I have multiple personality disorder.
Well, but even so, you're still only left with the resources. You know, even if you got 14 personalities, you're only one body. You're not going to be able to create, 14 times the assets simply by having those personalities. So, I mean, it gets down to a reality where, again, the power is being usurped, and supremacy by default is transferred to these conglomerates of one form or another, as opposed to the individual. And this is all turned upside down from what I was initially taught in civics class. The Constitution was about what it was about to be, a citizen in this country and stuff. I mean, the word counterintuitive comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
How, like, in order to level the playing field, it was already impossible. But I mean, to actually grant these same rights to these, it's a question of resources once again. Unless you are the richest of the rich, you can't possibly compete with a state's resources or its ability to go after, anything, even during a prosecution. I mean, I've always said this about the justice system to begin with, is that, you're in a bad spot if you're ever caught up in it, regardless of what you have done or have not done, because immediately, the majority of people are not going to have the resources that the prosecution could exert on the effort to prosecute you. So your defense is already hindered simply by the old David and Goliath sort of problem here. Okay, except the reality is that Goliath is really usually the winner. Okay, that's why that story is remarkable. Okay, because Goliath usually does win. All right? It's that simple. Okay? But I think nobody's paying attention to this, and I don't know why. What do you think about that?
I think because it serves their paradigm. Hobby Lobby decision in the Supreme Court was a lot bigger than we all realize. That's religious freedom for a corporation. And what that means is, if you don't adhere to the religion that the owner of the corporation does, and they want to base their corporate culture and all of their internal rules and regulations on their religious beliefs, and they don't want to honor yours because they don't believe in your God, they're atheistic toward your God, which is funny, isn't that? Religious people are atheists. But anyway, they can discriminate against you, even to the extent of the hiring process. If they don't want to hire you because you show up, if you're a Muslim and you show up with something over your head, or if you are black and they assume that you celebrate Kwanzaa and they don't want to deal with that at the end of the year, or if you're Jewish or whatever you believe, they can discriminate against you, and all because of that Hobby Lobby decision in the U.S. Supreme Court. And we've all gone over ad infinitum what Citizens United has done to this country. Right. So now the next state is to give actual states the right to a jury trial.
See, and that's the other odd thing, because if you start giving all these rights to these, conglomerate entities, okay, I don't know how else to put that, but I mean, if you keep doing that, then, they each have the right to self-defense, too.
They might have the right to declare themselves as a specific gender and reap government benefits or subsidies because they are a female corporation as opposed to a male corporation. Or they might be able to say that they are of a specific race, that they are an African American corporation or an Asian American or Caucasian, The list goes on and on. They could get married, they could get divorced, their subsidiaries could then turn into children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of these, and it sounds so absurd, doesn't it? But gee, that means that the state of Texas could marry the state of Oklahoma. Okay, and
yeah, what would that look like?
Wow. Okay, we'll just leave that alone.
Yeah, that's too weird. That's like something off of Plum Island.
Yeah, that's like, see, New York and New Jersey getting married, you go, well, cousins are cousins.
Why? No, cousins are, yeah, that's why.
But, but you start looking at, say like Florida and Alabama, and you worry. Um, don't even know where to go from there. But the thing is, it gets into a really strange realm, and I think that people don't realize exactly how dangerous that is, and it's one of those things that's being overlooked. I think that this is being progressively done, and of course, assigning these characteristics to things that are not necessarily singular sentient beings, it becomes a whole weird argument. And that's the other thing. And, even when you brought up gender, God, it seems as though it's politically incorrect at this point to even declare yourself as a gender-specific individual in any way, shape, or form, because all of that is now wide open based on whatever it is you decide that day. And that's the way it's supposed to be for everybody, so it's actually offensive to those who are flipping a coin on a daily basis. But, things like that get very strange. And it gets even stranger when you're talking about these collective entities. Collective is better than conglomerate.
Well, yeah, if you have a corporation that started out with a female CEO, and then they fire that CEO for a male CEO, is it a transgender corporation?
Well, see, and that's the thing. Is a layoff, then in that case, a surgical operation? And does now the corporation also require... You see, it gets all really strange now, because does the corporation require health insurance? Or do they get well, no, they don't get penalized for anything anyway. Oops, okay, fell down on my face there. I forgot, they don't actually pay taxes most of the time, or if they do, it's really unfairly disproportionate and everything else, and they usually get enough tax breaks that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So, once again, back to the fairness of what it means.
Yeah, but keep rioting. The NFL season's coming up. Keep rioting.
Oh, yeah, get your stuff ready, because, if the Kansas City Chiefs lose...
Get your couch out.
Things are going to get rough over there. What a world, Suzanne. So you're still doing this though, and you've been doing it for a while. How long is actually? You know what? That was another question somebody asked me. How long has Occupy Corporatism been around?
Since 2011. I think it was November. Okay,
because I was not sure. I knew for sure that it's been the past few years, and like I told you a while ago. I mean, I think the first place I heard of you was on Jack Blood's show, but over the years I keep running into you all the time. So, and she also is an admin on the Ochelli Effect Facebook entity page, so a lot of her news stories end up going through there. But you can also find Suzanne on Facebook. You can find her on the internet on OccupyCorporatism.com. The U.S. Independent is still going as well, right? Oh, did I lose Suzanne?
No, I muted myself out.
Oh, nice. Okay.
No, the U.S. Independent is in a holding pattern because of the Crystal Pure CBD. That company is extremely important to me and to my husband, so we're just devoting all of our time to that, and me to Occupy Corporatism.
Okay. Well, see, because that's always the site I've gone to anyway. I've always gone to Occupy Corporatism. Well, of course, there's an Occupy Corporatism on Facebook. There's, a page there if you want to just sort of begin to peruse things there. But I would suggest you go straight to the website. And, of course, Crystal Pure CBD. And, of course, she's the host of Hardline on American Freedom Radio. Okay, wanted to get all that in because knowing me, I'll stop watching the clock, and all of a sudden my bumper, which is even louder than it used to be, will kick in. I won't get to all that, so that's why I'm sort of prematurely preempting, the noise that I know is going to cut us off when we're talking here. But hey, out of curiosity though, what else is on your mind besides this story and and the other stories that are going on? I mean, How are you seeing the world? I mean, I'm starting to see things change a bit. In some ways, I'm seeing some hopeful changes among the consciousness. In other ways, I get a little bit depressed. I wonder what it is we've actually learned since 1965 in the past 50 years. I say this over and over again because I look back to the Watts riots and the unrest which was going on in the streets over the Vietnam War. and things like that. And I see that a lot of the lessons are still not being learned as far as allowing people to control your opinions and your perceptions out there. Far too often, and I definitely don't want to be one of these people who is the paragon of telling you what to do, except that I say, please, I beg you, think for yourselves and try not to accept the programming. Okay, that's the only thing I can really say consistently. But what is on your mind as you peruse all of this stuff and as you go through the paces of putting out these articles, which are voluminous, to say the least, and continuous, and even when you're in the process of moving, the articles still keep coming out. That's what's
Yes, I
case.
just moved into a new house and I was still writing up until the day that my husband unplugged the internet.
Oh man, yeah, well. And I guarantee if it had been too long of a little bit of a, if it had been too long of a break in your internet connection, you probably would have been down at Burger King using their Wi-Fi or something to get stuff out.
Well, I live near Seattle, so there's a Starbucks on literally every corner.
Yeah, that's right. You know what? I forgot. Starbucks would be the place for you to go. Over here, I'd have to either use the Burger King or the Bojangles Wi-Fi, I think. But,
I would choose Bojangles then.
Bojangles. Do you know what a Bojangles is?
I do. I grew up in Florida. I know that.
Okay, then you know. Because I say that to other people, they go, "What a Bojangles? Like you mean like the old Holly?" No. It's a chicken place.
And you say it like downtrodden. You're like, "Oh, it's a chicken place."
Yeah, well. Because, I don't trust any of this stuff anymore. I mean,
be chicken, we're not sure.
It might be chicken, it might not. The biscuits seem legit, but other than that, I'm not clear.
Like the water.
Yeah, like the water. Yes. Oh boy. But then again, I don't live in California, so at least there still is water.
Right.
But, and my apologies to the people that do listen to me in California, and I do appreciate you guys. But I look at one of the most progressive states in the Union having these troubles and almost seeming surprised by them. I shake my head. I'm sorry, guys, but I do. I don't understand why it is you didn't see that, either way. The larger corporate interests go in there and vampirically destroy anything that has to do with human sustenance. I mean, how could you people not see it? Anyway, I'm sorry. Like I said, the last, say, 15 minutes here or so, I want to get at what's on your mind, because if I sit here rambling, God knows where we'll go. So... Go right ahead about whatever else is randomly kind of walking through your mind at this point.
Jade Helm. How long do we have?
Ooh.
As soon as I say those two words, everybody hushes.
Right.
Because I just I'm sorry, folks. It's bullshit. Okay.
See, a little under 15 minutes, and I'll tell you that I've gotten crap for this, but I think that it might actually just be for the purpose of seeing what happens when you agitate people that are suspicious of these things.
For the right wing, it is. Absolutely it is, because even Mike Huckabee, when he announced his presidency, was talking about Jade Helm. This is a pundit talking point, but what's funny to me is before the show, I thought you were going to ask me about Jade Helm. So I prepared myself, because I have been talking about this on Facebook and Twitter and getting a lot of flack for it, but there's no evidence to any of these claims. They have a map that comes from the training exercise itself, and I'm talking to you as an Air Force brat whose father graduated as an E7 and had special clearance several times during his service. Stuff that he can't even talk to me about even to this day because it's still classified. So, and I grew up on Homestead Air Force Base. I know a lot about it by living around it, what it's like. And I'm telling you, this is a training exercise. But what's ironic is every single time there's a training exercise, all of a sudden, oh my God, it's martial law. Literally. I went back and looked in history. Literally going all the way back to 1999. They kept saying martial law was coming. This training exercise was going to bring about martial law. It never happened. In 2006, 2008, just recently in urban training during in Portland, Oregon, and in Dallas and Florida, everybody screamed it was martial law. It never happened. This is a training exercise.
Well, see, now this is where I am suspicious of this stuff, but I don't hit the panic button because I'm also aware that anytime there is intelligence training, like if there's an intelligence training facility anywhere adjacent to where you live, anywhere in this country, you're aware of the fact that these guys do go out on exercises among the civilian population constantly anyway. This happens all the time, actually. Okay? These guys perform all sorts of exercises that you never get to hear about, that never get leaked out anywhere. All sorts of infiltration and interaction with civilian populations on American soil are constant. This is not new, you know? And I wonder at the motives for those that have decided to float this.
It is the CNP. It is the Council for National Policy. And the reason why is because they want a theocratic government. Okay? And they are pumping up the veterans. They are pumping up the people who are good old boys, who believe in their country, who work the land and till the soil, and all of the cliches you could possibly, and all the stereotypes you could possibly think of. Those real people, the Joe Plumbers, they've grabbed them, they've gotten a hold of them, and they are freaking them out. And they want to create a militia here in this country. They already have with Oath Keepers. Ironically, one of their spokesmen, Larry Pratt, wrote a book about General Singlab in 2009. Happened to be the same year that Stuart Rhodes set up Oath Keepers, and it just so happens that Larry Pratt and Stuart Rhodes are good friends. I don't know. Is that a coincidence? Gee, whatever. Let me put on my tinfoil hat for that one. But nobody wants to talk about the fact that the CNP members are out there talking about and freaking everybody out over Jade Helm and all of their spin-offs, and people who just blindly believe what the right-wing crazy want to say without looking at evidence, without looking at facts, and any YouTube video that they could get their hands on, and just blindly believe stuff that they hear. Those are the people who are all freaked out. Well, and it's ridiculous.
And that's the thing, is they've also seized upon, a market which is near and dear to me, which is the conspiracy theorist kind of market, which was always, wide open for this kind of stuff. They've gotten to that where, you can hear on certain larger alleged alternative broadcasts a lot of fear-mongering and fear porn going on there about this. That immediately tells me that there's something wrong, okay?
Yeah, when Megyn Kelly is talking about it on Fox News, that should tell you something. It's not that it made it to the mainstream. It's coming from them. The CNP owns Washington Post, Breitbart, CNP members. Jerome Corsi is a CNP member. So everything that comes out of WorldNet Daily is absolute garbage. Late Stanley Monteith. Like I said, Stuart Rhodes, and then you have Wayne LaPierre over at the NRA, and you have executive directors over at Newsmax. That entire outfit is CNP rhetoric. And all of these big names, mainstream and alternative and fringe, are all infiltrated, and some of their, like on RBN, they play Phyllis Schlafly. She started the Eagle Forum, which is the sister of the CNP. It's for chicks, okay?
Right.
And they play her her little thing during the commercials. Every time I go on RBN, it makes me sick when I hear her, because half the people probably listening in the audience don't realize they're being propagandized to on an allegedly alternative media outlet. But they are there. They are everywhere, and they run the show. They tell you what the talking points are. They tell you what to be scared of. They don't care about facts and evidence. They want you freaked out. They want you grabbing your gun. Think about what Pamela Geller just did down in Texas with the Draw Muhammad.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing: when I see, and this might be touchy for you, but when I see AJ and I see Jim Fetzer and Fox News agreeing, This is
When I saw Alex Jones endorse Ted Cruz, who is a member of the CNP, and Rand Paul, who is a member of the CNP, and Ron Paul is not a member, but everybody around him sure is. I that's absolute. You know, it's entertaining, but don't take it seriously. It's right wing propaganda. It's
that's
just
yeah.
you know what it is. It's the net. The people who aren't watching Fox News, the people who aren't mainstream, the fringe. They've cast out this net and they've put their players in place. And so if you are going way off to the fringe, they've already got a storyline for you. It's just the back of Baskin and Robbins where the extra more than 31 flavors are located.
Right, and I say this: stay aware, stay alert, stay vigilant, but at the same time, stay sane. You know, this is not. I'm not hitting the panic button, and I talked about this on Tuesday that I don't believe that this is the time to panic. You know, this is not the real game because believe me, they wouldn't have leaked it like this. This is not the way it would have showed up. You know, we always hear about this stuff later on when they're really doing deep cover operations that are of any significance. This is not the way the intelligence community works. As a matter of fact, I think that the fact that it was put out in this form was to simply test the reaction, you know, among the greater blogosphere or whatever it is you want to call it. I
Well,
really do feel that way.
the terrorists that they're fighting now with ISIS, these are millennials who are tech savvy. That's why they have a control over social media.
Mm.
Even in these countries that we think of as cavemen, third world, you know, they live in huts. They don't have access to internet. Well, guess what they do?
Yeah,
And
they
they
seem
don't live
really
in
good.
huts, you know. They
Yeah.
actually have beautiful cities just like you and I do. I have a friend in Iran, and she shows me pictures all the time when she goes out on the weekends, and it looks exactly like here. Exactly like here. Not like the other stuff when I watch the news and I see footage of the cities that they show there. And we have this skewed idea, but when it comes to ISIS, they have to do these urban warfare drills because ISIS is everyday millennials run. They only put that garb up when they're showing off and when they're making videos and doing stuff for pictures. The rest of the time, they look like any other millennial, and that's the problem that the soldiers are going to have, and that's why they have to do these drills in urban areas to understand how to pick out people who are part of an organization that looks like every other person out there. It makes complete sense. But, of course, every time they do a military exercise, and I'm telling you, I went back and looked in history, every single time, it's martial law, and they're going to declare martial law either during or after the drill is over, and it never happens. Never. It's never happened. Never. Never.
Yeah, I think the potential is there for something like that to happen because I look at it, you know, in connection, or should I say in context with what's going on, you know, currently regarding, you know, the civil unrest that we are experiencing across the country because of police brutality and things like that. I do. I do. So I see why the emotional reaction is created, but still this is not this just is not the big thing that everybody thinks they're waiting for. You
Well,
know.
I've been scouring the internet, and people are bringing me articles and emailing me and messaging me, and I'm collecting all of these predictions that every one of these guys are making. And if you're listening, I'm collecting all your predictions. And on September 16th, after Jade Helm is over and after martial law is not declared, I am going to out all of your predictions and expose you for the liars that you are. So get ready.
Well, we're gonna have to do that one when you put it together, because I'm gonna have a lot of fun with that one because I'm telling you
I think in real time, if you look back in history, there have been predictions made and they never come true and everybody just brushes it off and keeps going. But we need an itemized receipt this time. Because if you're going to make a prediction and you're going to say something's true based on anonymous intelligence and you're lying, then you don't need to be in the position that you are. Period. And if you're a journalist or a broadcaster claiming to be a journalist, you're not. You're a propagandist, and you need to be outed for that so people understand when they click on you, they're going for entertainment and not for education.
right, absolutely, and of course, comments in the chat room include that nothing close to this size of an operation has ever occurred.
That's not
Uh,
true. Operation Roving Sands was huge.
oh,
And Rick Perry didn't have a problem with it back then, but that was also because we didn't have a black man sitting in office.
Oofa. Well, you brought up exactly what I was going to bring up. Yeah, there actually have been things of this size before. And as I said, it is actually a constant in the continental U.S. and the U.S. territories that these kind of operations do occur. You just don't usually hear about them.
We just have short-term memory, that's all.
But that
We
too.
just don't remember, and we're not reminded enough to remember. And so when we hear new information, we think it's new, and we think it's the most sensational because it's happening right now, and we can't remember a time when it was happening before. But if you look back in history, you will find it. The problem is you can't listen to these people and get freaked out. You have to go back and check their facts. And most of the time, it's anonymous sources that cannot be corroborated outside of that one outlet or their spin-offs, and that to me is not credible evidence. It wouldn't hold up in a courtroom. You wouldn't divorce your wife over it, and you wouldn't get chemotherapy over it. You wouldn't take your doctor's word if he told you had chemotherapy or cancer without any evidence.
Oh well, let me argue with you there. That's not true. Lots of people do. As far as taking the chemotherapy without any evidence, first of all. Second of all,
Okay, well, a reasonable person.
But okay, along the reasonable lines, though, it depends on who your wife is actually as to what excuse is acceptable for divorcing her. So.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I'm sorry, I had to bring it there because we're almost out of time.
But that's a straw. Just to be fair, it's a straw man argument. It's not indicative of a normal, reasonable person.
I know that. That's why I said it. I just wanted to go there because I don't know. I felt compelled to do so. But you are absolutely correct. Of course, it's a straw man argument. Leave it to you to do that to me right when I'm making a joke. Thanks. But
sorry.
It's okay. One more time, though, OccupyCorporatism.com is where you can find all of Suzanne's work. And usually she doesn't get to talk like this, not even on her own show. So
that's true.
We do something a little different here. That's for sure, and that I absolutely enjoy it. I want to thank you for coming on with me tonight because I needed to laugh a little bit, and I needed to get some real information out as usual, and try and mix it up. And I'm like I said, I'm glad you came along with me on this one because it was a weird night. And I'm waiting for that disco music to jump back in again, but probably not. We'll just get my loud bumper at the end. Your final thoughts on tonight's broadcast, though?
Look it up. Don't just believe it. Really, seriously, just don't believe it. Look it up. Look at it from a reasonable, logical standpoint. If it still freaks you out, then maybe you just need to turn it off and go do something else. If it freaks you out and it scares you and it compels you to buy survival seeds, then I would say don't listen to it.
Right. There's nothing wrong with being prepared, but at least be prepared with real information. And the first step to being prepared for any eventuality is to be prepared from within. And, of course, trying to, remain in the confines of logic, reality, and evidence are often helpful when it comes to trying to maintain one's sanity. Okay? Let's try and keep that in mind as we move forward on any issue. And remember that although things are bad, they are not necessarily at that cataclysmic point where the Armageddon is upon us. Okay, no matter what your point of view is, try to be reserved enough and flexible enough to continue to survive and thrive without burying yourself alive, especially in the fear porn and propaganda industries that are more than willing to rent all kinds of space in your heads, people. Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, the end times have been predicted 242 times, and we're still here. So, relax.
At least. And you know what? If it is the end time anyway, whether you're relaxed or you're high-strung, guess what? If that's really what's going to happen, you're not going to be the one to personally affect it. Like I said, be prepared.